And then this is you. I mean, you must love to do retellings. Of course, we talked previously. Tiger Queen is a sort of retelling, reimagining of the Lady of the Tiger. And what is it about retellings that excites you, that gets you interested?
I mean, I think these are the stories that I grew up with. And so I love them at such a deep level. Again, they're so personal to me. There's something that, got me through childhood. I still dream that I'm like going to be a Disney princess one day, even though like I don't go out in nature much, obviously, because I'm a hermit. So I can't have like a flock of like helpful pigeons or something.
Has Disney had a hermit princess? Yeah, flock of pigeons. That was gargoyles. Was for Quasimodo, not a princess, but the start.
Okay, I just got compared to Quasimodo, you guys.
No, just the hermit part. Just the hermit. We started with Carol Baskin. We moved to Quasimodo. I usually don't compliment the guest appearances, but now I feel obligated. Annie Sullivan, you are a very attractive Hoosier. We think you look like that of those folks.
Don't worry, I've got a good sense of humor. Don't worry, I can handle being Quasimodo. It's fine. Wait, now
just
I don't
in
even know where. It's okay. I actually am much more like Quasimodo than I realize. Now that I think about it, I'm like, oh man, yeah. I just want like a couple like cool friends to hang out with me in my like isolated tower where COVID-19 can't come in. Like, let's do that. But yeah, so I love retellings. Again, I'm one of 4 kids, so like I love thinking about like forgotten characters because spoiler alert, I've always felt like a forgotten middle child. But since there are 4 of us, I have to like share being a middle child, so I get even less attention than like a normal middle child. Yeah, I know. Welcome to my life.
You don't even get your own angst. You have to share that with someone.
Right. My mom's out there playing like a tiny violin, like no one cares. You were very loved, and I was very loved. My parents loved me very much. But I've always like felt drawn to these characters who are kind of like forgotten. They're just like plopped into a story, and like you never hear about them. So I love to just see where their stories go. And as an author and as a writer, one of your most powerful questions is what if? What if this happened? What if I told the story from King Midas's daughter's point of view? What if Cinderella never made it to the ball? What if this or that happened instead? Like you can take that question and just turn it into an entire story idea. And so that's what I love. I am working on something new. I won't make any promises, and I'm not going to go into it, but it is not a retelling. It's just completely new YA fantasy. So I can do both, but retellings just have a special place in my heart because they also allow me to kind of create stories for today's modern readers. We take fairy tales where maybe there's a princess like Aurora in the original Disney movie gets like 18 lines total. Really? And I want to say, yeah, you can Google it. I think she gets 18 lines in the entire hour and a half, hour 45 minutes, however long it is movie, right? I want to give modern day readers role models that they can look up to and be like, man, look at that princess. And that's kind of the interesting thing I'll say too is, in Tiger Queen, Princess Kateri is very much like she is a warrior princess. She will beat you down. She was practically born with a sword in her hand, right? Whereas Princess Cora in A Touch of Gold is much softer. She kind of has to find her inner strength. And so I want to kind of say like, hey, you don't have to have a sword in your hand to be a strong female character. You can be smart, you can be witty, you can be funny, you can, do all these different things and still be a strong female character. And so it's kind of taking these original myths, just kind of turning them on their head a little bit and saying like, instead of, hey, Little Red Riding Hood, make sure you stay on the path and you have to be careful. It's saying, hey, Little Red Riding Hood, here's a sword. Go out there and walk down that path and kill the wolf if he comes along because you are capable and you can do it. And so that's kind of what I want to do is reintroduce these stories with just a new little twist of saying like, yeah, kind of like girl power. You got this.
Well, get in a high stakes fight with the wolf, but if you kill the wolf, you could badly wound it. But maybe it's the wolf's son that comes back and out of revenge eats grandma. That could be the twist.
Right, yes. Oh, I've tried to write like 6 different Red Riding Hood retellings, and I get like a couple chapters in, and I'm like, nah, that didn't quite work. That's not the right world. That's not the right character. Maybe someday, but
I feel like that one, more so than other myths, has been retold I don't know why, because I wouldn't put it up there as like the absolute best ones, because I don't think Little Red Riding Hood has that much cleverness. Like, oh, your teeth are so large, Grandma. That's the cleverness. Okay, she can properly identify a wolf. Oh, well.
She's really good at stating the obvious. Okay.
Grandma, I noticed you're in a bed. That's a place where folks sleep. Well spotted, Red. Glad to keep you around. You know what? I take it back. This story needs your retelling. You need to give Little Red Riding Hood something more to her character.
Right. She needs a little bit more agency. She needs something going on there. She needs some help.
Also, the wolf should be a robot, and that's it. I'll leave the rest in your hands. always glad to be of use. So when you're doing one of these retellings, what do you want to do? How do you stay true to the original myth while still telling your story? How do you determine what it's okay to change? Is it cool to make the wolf a robot? Is that going too far?
That is not going too far at all. I think you always want to do something that goes almost a little too far, right? Because you want it to be different enough from that first myth. Like you want the bones to be there per se, but you want something new, right? There's no reason for someone to read your retelling if it's a blow by blow of the original story, right? And I mean, there are different ways you can kind of do it and mess with things. Like you can put it in different setting. You can put it in a different, time period. You can make it a contemporary story. You can put it in outer space. You can make it from the point of view of the villain and make the villain the hero, or just tell it from the villain's point of view, or different things like that. That really kind of add that new flair to it. For like A Touch of Gold, I did tell it from King Midas's daughter. Like she never gets a story, right? It's always King Midas wanted the touch and Dionysus gave it to him, or someone else gave it to him, or whatever like different story you read. And so it really is about making sure there's enough of the original in there that you kind of pay homage to it a little bit, but you're not writing it word for word, because that's never going to be exciting for your readers.
Is there, and you convinced me, by the way, that being turned into gold would absolutely be terrible. I love the PTSD and the horror that Cora experiences, recurring imagining of having her heart turned to gold and stopping. I was, oh my God, that does sound awful. I will not sign up for that. But without spoiling, I don't think, because it's pretty early on in the series, we learn that, of course, shortly thereafter, the king gets word that, hey, if you wash everything that you touch to turn into gold, dummy, this one chance you get a do-over, and everything will come back and not be gold, including your daughter. And of course, old Midas screws that up too. But I'll leave that to the reader. Was that from anything, or is that purely Annie Sullivan original to keep the story going?
That is a combo, actually. Water is kind of very important often, and has been described as something that is too pure to kind of be like touched by magic, right? So I think in some versions of the myth, I want to say he does survive on water, because it was like the only thing he could get down. So like that was something that I wanted to really incorporate, and I did incorporate Dionysus, who is the one in most of the original myth who gives him the touch, or I call it the touch, to turn things to gold. But most of that, the rest of it, yeah, like throwing it in the river, that was just me being like, all right, well, let's take that water element and kind of up it and say, like, if water's, was pure enough not to turn to gold, then that means you could wash it in the river as long as the god made it like the special time. So yeah, it was kind of like a mixture there of like what I did versus what was in the myth. And in the original myth, I don't ever think he actually turns his daughter back. So it was just kind of.
Yeah, I thought she was kind of screwed forever.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for teaching your father about your lesson. That was your life.
Right, exactly. So I just wanted to give her a new life. I was like, you deserve a story and a life. So here you go.
Yeah, but old Greek myths, they're like that. Kids are always dying to prove a point or getting baked in pies. Times.
I mean, Zeus had enough kids. There were people everywhere. So.
Well, once you get past a couple of hundred kids, what's 2 in a pie? It's fine.
Oh dear. cannibalism.
It was just a matter of time. No, I'm glad to talk about some of these things. I took this couple of long classes on Greek mythology, and up till now, the only thing they've been useful for is when I play Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I could turn to my wife and say, "Oh, I know more details about this character." It hasn't come in handy for much else other than the glory of knowledge.
Yeah, I think the cool thing is you have to know the rules before you can break the rules, right? So I kind of hinted very strongly that there might be some gorgons, right, in A Curse of Gold. And so I had to know, how are gorgons created originally? How many are there? All these kind of things. Then I was like, okay, now that I know all of that, how can I play with that? How can I create more? That kind of stuff, it's just like looking at what's there. And there's another creature, well, there are a couple creatures that show up, but there's another one that shows up related to the gorgons that I'm not going to give away. And so, yeah, I think it's just really important to see, like, I did a lot of the research into how that other creature was also created, and how you would get
Spoiler,
more.
it's a robot wolf.
What? How did you know?
It's all up here.